Welcome to this week's episode of Beauty Babble. Today we're talking about the most common challenges that business owners in the beauty industry are currently facing. We're joined by Tiffany Starchuk. She's a coach and consultant with 26 years experience in the beauty biz as an esthetician, educator, spa manager, and dean of a private vocational aesthetic college. She's the founder of Tiffany Starchuk Consulting. Tiffany, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. I look forward to our conversation.
Yes, we're excited to have you, and we're going to try to keep this on one topic because Tiffany has a wealth of information and experience to share with everyone. So I don't think this will be our last episode with Tiffany too. Yeah, so I guess breaking right into it is, what's the biggest concern or questions you're getting from the beauty business owners?
Currently, and this is, two of these questions I would say actually are continual. It's not just right now. It's been, for probably the duration of time I've been working with business owners. And that is not only where to find quality employees, but how to keep your staff retention. As we know, the cost of retraining is extraordinarily high. And as we know, our client base develops loyalties to our service providers, not necessarily our med spa or our clinic. So that is really a huge question that is always lingering. The next one I'm seeing right now is very much just into the wellness factor, how we're bringing wellness into the spa without losing our spa's identity if it's not fully, wrapped around that wellness sector. And I would say the third, obviously, is how can I make more money? How can I bring in more clients, retain more clients, see more retail sales? The never-ending battle of retailing with our service providers has always been a challenge. So I would say those for sure are the top three that I'm seeing currently. Yeah.
Okay. Are those concerns from specific size spas, or is it all sizes of businesses that are facing similar concerns?
I would say the largest spa that I've been chatting with recently has 31. They're out on the West Coast and they have 31 service providers. And I would say the wellness factor is not necessarily that large of a topic with them because that's already been the foundation of who they are. But staff retention, absolutely. We've seen a major shift in staff retention. It was never high. I don't feel that it was ever just at an ultimate, peak performance in our industry, but definitely seeing that as across the board major, I don't want to say uproar, but it is. It's very difficult. It's a huge challenge.
Mm-hmm. Just talking a little bit more about that, because I know over the years being in this industry, it has changed in the last short term here of that retention for different reasons. Is there anything specific you've noticed of why it's so high now? Like, we've always had it, like you said, retention in the beauty industry has always been happening, but before it was for different reasons than more so than the last few years, I would say. Do you agree?
I would absolutely agree. What I see now and what I've seen in the past probably 20 months, not only from a staff retention point of view, but even looking into the schools with students coming in. And I believe you and I shared a bit of this conversation as well, I'm going to just say it, fear. Fear is a huge factor this past 24 months. And I find that there's kind of this, I think of the Sarah Jessica Parker movie, The Failure to Launch. It's like this, there's all this excitement, there's this drive, there's this motivation, and then the follow through is very minimal. And I think a lot of it does stem from definitely from a fear base of how long am I going to have this? Am I going to be good at this? All of this internal self-talk that we already all have. But I think it's just so much louder now once everything was taken from us. There's now this trust barrier that's been really, really broken.
Interesting. Is there a couple little pointers you could give someone that you could share maybe from all your years of experience? And if they're feeling this way, what are some things that, top the 3 things that they could maybe work on or suggest to them?
would say the biggest part for, not only as advice, but something that I really work to be strong in myself is being present and the quality of the conversations that you're having with your team. And that's from the get-go. I think that there is a lot of undiscussed expectations when people come into a work environment. And when we have that, I believe expectations are premeditated resentment. So if I have all these expectations of you and how you're going to do services, how you're going to treat my clients, how you're going to, recommend retail, but I've never modeled that for you, we're already off at a bad start. I hear constantly there's conversations, well, what's wrong with her? Why is she doing that way? Or, who would think to do it that way? Where if we as leaders take the accountability and truly, I feel this is very empowering to sit and have clear, concise conversations with people when we're hiring them, when we're onboarding them, ask those difficult questions. And I feel that a lot of times we get into a space of desperation. I have 5 bridal parties coming in the next week. I need this person. I need somebody. And I think that those of us who have been in business longer than about a year, you understand that somebody is not always a great idea, right? Having that right person that shares that vision, that is going to take those expectations and place them into a very, very clear, concise agreement. I think that is the foundation of building a great relationship with the team member. And when you're able to actually sit with them and give them positive, I don't like the word positive feedback, but positive reassurance or congratulations, finding the great things that they're doing in a day, I think that can just change everything. When that basis of that conversation is crystal clear, the agreements are laid out, both parties are in agreement of, I'm going to show up here at 8:40. I understand my shift is not starting until 9. I want to be prepared and confident for my first service. So these are the agreements that I'm going to keep in line. Everybody kind of comes from all these different walks of life, all these home of origins, and we all come in and think that we're playing the same game, and that's not the case.
Yeah, so, that's so true.
You're gonna set yourself up with success, in my opinion, by having the hard conversations in the interview, really following your intuition through that interview, because there's a lot of times, again, the desperation gets the best of us, and just being super clear on what this job, what this career is, what I need from you and what you need from me. And I think that a lot of the time, that the courage in there from both the employer and the employee, that can be a big miss a lot of the time, right?
Yes. So, well, you're so caught up on running your business,
absolutely,
that you forget you have a team there, and that they're looking at you and what you are representing. And it's really like a mentoring through the whole process. Like the onboarding is the technical term of it, right? Absolutely. But if you're not helping and showing through, it takes time. And that's when you said there's so much time involved in preparing your staff. Absolutely. And helping the staff get ready for this. It's not like a week process. You could be an esthetician of 20 years, and you walk into a new establishment, you should be treated like you're new. Absolutely. But respect your experience, but still don't assume that they've got this. You still need to help them be a part of the team, right?
100%. I think what you said is so beautiful, because in the same token, I mean, I've been doing facials for however long. It doesn't mean if I'm coming into your home, into your clinic, that your facial is my facial. And yes, you can, as you said, respecting the years of experience I have behind me. At the same time, your business has an identity in which I need to ensure that I'm providing that same beautiful experience to the client that you have, and that my other staff members have. Right. So yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
So that foundation, and that does take time. It takes a lot of time to build out how you're onboarding and the consistency of your onboarding. If we were onboarded differently, we're now coming to the table with different rules.
Exactly. And I think that's a key one, because I remember for myself, I had the same list, if you wish, of when I did onboarding. And it didn't matter how many years you were in it, fresh out of school, or years of experience, or 30 years or more than I had, whatever it was. I just explained, listen, I respect what you are doing and what you bring to this table, but you need to understand that everyone gets on board the same way. And do you agree? Are you willing to do this? So that they understand that they're part of this, and that, like you said, the consistency of having the same way is crucial to, the survival of having your staff stay as well, right?
Absolutely.
For me, as not having been a spa owner, as having been an esthetician and working side by side and we weren't doing things the same way. And then because I'm a perfectionist, I'm like panicking because I wanted everything to be flowing, right? I think it reflects down to your clients too. So if you're not trained, you don't the same way, then you don't know which is the right way, right? So you can't leave it to the person doing the service either, because it's kind of unfair to them. They're doing the service.
Right. Yeah, and that's something, it's huge because, it's a good point to say that a lot of places, for example, that pedicure station, even lash stations are out in the open side by side almost, right? That you really have to be very aware of what each of your staff members is doing and representing and how they're doing it. Because if you think that the person next to you, that the client doesn't know, they do know more than and even more so now than before. Because if they could be doing it at home, some of them are trying to do it at home. I mean, you can buy everything online now.
100%.
It might not be very successful, but I mean, it's not that they're not going to try. So they have an idea of what to expect. So that's why it's so important that they're doing very similar. Like I said, you're going to have your personality is going to show, your touch in a sense of how you are with them, your energy that you produce when you're working with your clients. It's going to be, Darine, you're Darine, Tiffany, you're you, me, Suzanne. Our pedicures are going to be the same.
Absolutely.
That's the only thing that's different is us as people, right? But the service needs to be very similar, because it happened. I witnessed it myself. And, behind the scenes, I had to tell the staff, I told you so. Like, and I said it, I told you so. This was going to fire back on you. Now, how do we explain it to the client?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you did it differently.
Well, and they've done it differently, and whether it is above or below, the expectation or how somebody else has performed it, the consistency isn't there. And the number one way to build trust is through consistency. So when that trust from that client hits that speed bump, that can be months to repair. We all know this. We are a majority women, industry, and trust, when it's broken, whether it be with a client, a business, a spouse, whomever, a parent, that is a long road of repair. So save yourself that.
Exactly.
Let's just totally, completely prevent this issue from growing. Right. So no, I agree. And I think that, especially being on either side, whether it's I've come in where it's like, oh yeah, you know how to do a pedicure, and this is the products we use, and you're your first day. So, I come in, I was very nervous. And I remember I'm sitting there and I paraffin waxed like right after I soaked. I just went right into paraffin wax because I couldn't get my feet underneath me, if you will. I just felt so unprepared. I had no idea where anything was in the service room. I'm watching my, we were doing a couple's pedicure. I'm watching her and I'm like, what, and I'm just a mess. I could recite the way to do a pedicure backwards, forwards, and in my sleep upside down. Right. And when you get into that unconfident, that space that is not great within your brain, you're just not performing well. And, the wife is looking at the husband, and then, this counterpart's looking at me. So she paraffins, and I'm like, why is she paraffining? And I'm like, oh, I just paraffin, so it's just,
it's true.
Disaster.
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess when you're looking at, when you say, that onboarding side of things for business owners or director, manager of a spa, whoever that leader is to really have it laid out of expectations that you have. Are you doing an orientation? As you just said, did you show them where everything is? Absolutely. Instead of just booking them and throwing them into the service. And I've seen that before too. And I've heard about that many times. And What about one thing that I found helpful was actually the staff. I tried to do it as often as I could. Again, sometimes it was too busy and we couldn't do it, unfortunately, but I always try to make a point of the new person having a service from one of the staff members and talking about why they do what they do. And they can have a conversation during something like a pedicure where they can sit and chat with each other and get to know the place and get to know the staff. And then the staff's getting a somewhat of a treat. It's not full service, I understand, but at the same time, they're getting something. So people willing to be models if you can fit that in. I don't know. What are your thoughts on some ideas to help them without, I mean, if they really, really want more, they'll have to contact you. But for now, if we could give them a couple little pointers to
absolutely
help them get started with it.
I think absolutely. I think first and foremost, when it comes to hiring a service provider, I want a service from them. I want that because they are going to be in all forms of nervousness. So please extend them grace. If you're going to put this into your practice, extend them that you are the employer. They are a little, quite nervous. So and maybe this sounds awful, but I'm kind of guessing that they're going to be at about a 50 to 60% of their 100% in that moment. But that is, they're going to fumble through it or they're going to nail it, whichever way. I'm going to have a really good understanding of, from my perspective, where there is opportunity, and even more so where there might be opportunity of one of the whether it's a massage technique or something could add into and add value into what we've had, what we've already been going with. So for me, interview process, that is my goal. There have been times I've hired without that. First day, that's what we do is I will invest the first day of them giving myself a service, them receiving a service, and then discussing the differences in what they felt and the technique that they're doing. And then throughout the rest of the day, they spend that rest of the day either shadowing or just exchanging services. And I have had so many people say, oh, the amount of money that costs. It says, you've already identified the problem that you are not retaining your staff. And I've had people say that I had the lowest amount of staff retention I've had is one girl saw 33 girls go, and the maximum time they spent was 8 days in the spa. So she's running around. And if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. So you need to make a drastic change here. So when you look at that, I think that it's really imperative for you to say, how long do I want to keep this person for? How confident do I want them? Because the other part is if I'm coming in day 2, day 3, and I don't know you are my lead esthetician, and Bonnie for say is my lead laser technician, and I have no idea who anybody is, because now 9 times out of 10 spas don't even put name tags on anybody. So I'm just new and kind of floundering about. The camaraderie is not there. That sense of belonging is not there.
The team.
Yeah. Exactly. And so am I setting that person up to be the best they can be when they go in to connect with a client, when they haven't felt that they've connected with anybody on the team or have some form of mentor within the space? So that day, in my opinion, is really, really important. Even if it's, you guys are going to sit and have lunch together and do the services in the morning, and then in the afternoon you're going to shadow, and then leave half an hour at the end of the day for me, if I'm your new laser technician, to sit and have conversation with the lead laser tech about, this is how I was trained and I'm a little confused on why you chose this setting. Allow that time for clarity. We are so, with being such a fast-paced society now and everything's available everywhere, we forget to check for understanding. We assume that people learn the exact same way that we learned. And maybe I've shadowed, but I learned really good hands-on. So maybe I say, could we come in tomorrow from 7:45 to 8:30? May I do just a portion of your lower leg to ensure that I've got this, so I'm ready and successful for the next day when I go into the client into the service room. And I think that's the biggest foundational error with all of that, is just that communication. So that's how I've always done it. I don't know if that resonates with other people, but it's definitely something I highly, highly suggest.
Well, I think too, if they haven't done it, maybe this is a good start, is to try it, get the feedback from your team as well. And maybe if you're introducing this brand new, what if you run your team through the whole concept and
Absolutely.
get their feedback so they feel a little bit more part of the team, what they think would be, what do they wish they would have had,
Absolutely.
right? Things like that. And they could work with their own team to figure out a few things to at least get that start and that consistency going and
Absolutely.
building your team for the long term, not to get you through the busy season.
Absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head there as well, is that a lot of us don't like feedback. I define feedback as anything that's going to help me grow. I don't see it. I don't know I'm doing it. It's something that is going to help me grow. A lot of people shy away from that, or they get really up in arms about it. I can't change what I don't know. And going and sitting with your team and asking them, or sending out a Survey Monkey. It's free. I highly recommend using Survey Monkey. Send it to your employees and say, what are 3 things you wish you had in your onboarding in your first 3 months, and what's one way I can have a better relationship with you? And be open to receive whatever they're going to tell you. Sometimes it's not nice. I've shed many tears over that. I can though either choose to see that as, oh, I'm terrible, or I can choose to say, okay, I was doing the best I can. I know different now, and I can go in and implement this for these people and build better relationships with these staff. And that is a question that I ask staff, I would say probably twice a month, because that may change. That may change on the way their mood is. Some of it may resonate with me, others may not.
Mhm.
It's the act of me sitting across from you and saying, what's something I can do to be a better leader for you, and holding that space. And they may say, nothing, you're doing great. I say, great, so are you, and high five, and away we go. But I love that you mentioned that, because if you dive into the people that you've already had and they get really transparent with you, you're going to find a wealth of knowledge there.
Yeah, and I mean, even on that, if someone chooses to try this and they're not sure how the outcome would be, is you're going to have to be uncomfortable a little bit to succeed. And if you sit down, say, okay, this is the survey I got, especially if you do have a high number of staff, and maybe don't have that relationship where they're going to come talk to you, or not sure how to tell you because you're so nice. Like there's that too. They don't want to hurt your feelings, whatever, or they think their job will be in jeopardy over it. Like there's such extreme measures to it all, right? But I think if you talk to your staff and say, thanks for doing this was so enlightening, I can see that these are the top things that we got at it, share it all with your staff. The whole team needs to hear it, I think, because I love that idea. I just see a bigger picture of it. Don't hold that information to yourself. If you're really developing a team, I think you got to bring them all in at the end and share it. And then the plan, okay, what's the next steps with that? Because
I could
can't
not
just do a survey and not do nothing about it.
absolutely.
I don't know how many of that has happened.
That's the next thing. Absolutely. Because then everybody feels that, oh, I wasted my time, or what I said wasn't good enough. We all go back into this, back up here to this neighborhood that's not so great to hang out alone sometimes. And I love that you said that, because share that for 2 reasons. Not only as saying, hey, I took the time, I've read everything that you've shared with me, but also, again, back to that checking for understanding. We don't experience things as they are. We experience them as we are. So you could give me a list of words. I have a different definition of them than, for say, each one of you. And if I sit down and say, this is what I heard you say, or this is what I'm understanding from that feedback, can we make sure that I'm understanding that correctly? Because I can't tell you how many times I just in my head was like, oh yeah, I know what she's saying. And I go 100 miles an hour this way. And she's like, did you hear anything?
Yeah.
Right?
That's so true.
It's so beautiful to hold that space with them and really give that time. And a lot of people roll their eyes and maybe like, oh, Tiffany, that sounds kind of kumbaya-ish. I promise you, when people feel that they matter, they will show up in an entirely different context into your world. I believe, as leaders, as mentors, as whether you're a spa manager or an owner, whichever your title is, and I say this with grace, with humility, not with, ego, you're a big deal to people. People choose you for their livelihood, for their comfort level in that 8 to 10 hour day. They trust you to ensure that they can turn the lights on in their home at the end of the month. And I think we forget, because we're so busy figuring everything else out, and maybe we're not really thinking we're doing a great job, that we forget that there's all these other eyes watching, and that our feedback, our opinion, and how we do things really does matter to our team.
Mm-hmm.
So having that time, I think, is really important.
I like how you're phrasing everything, because
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that I've experienced in giving feedback, or sometimes it can come across as complaining, and on the other hand, it's been received as complaining. So coming from that space, like you're saying, of repeating back what you heard and phrasing it as in, what can I do, instead of, what are your concerns with work, I think make a huge difference. So as the esthetician, you don't feel like you're going in with this negative, just complaining, but it's more like constructive, and that you are being heard. Because I think if you're not, that creates a lot of like toxic culture in the back room, and that can maybe contribute to turnover and unhappy staff.
Yeah, very much so. And I think this just popped in my head. I volunteer, and I'm highly involved in a personal development seminar. It goes on once a month down in Calgary. And this week I found this very profound, and it's so simple, but it was very profound. So I'd like you to imagine that I'm standing across from you. We're standing facing each other, and from where you stand, the number 81 is there. Now, from where I stand, the number is 18. Neither one of us is wrong or right. And I think a lot of the time we get into this fear of not being right. And then if I'm not right, I wasn't heard. And then this dumping block of domino effect just kind of spirals us. If we take into account our verbiage, that this is how I'm experiencing going in and doing a pedicure, I feel that 45 minutes is not enough time to ensure that my cuticle, all of the work is done to the level of which you would like us to be having clients leave. My suggestion would be that we have an extra 17 minutes, so that there's proper time for cleanup, as well as retailing, that you've told me is very important to you. Now, when I use I rather than you, I'm in the power of it. I'm in full power of that, versus there's so much of, you don't do this and you don't do that and you don't get it because you're an owner and you're not here. I hear this sob story from estheticians all the time. And I've had that sob story. So what's the accountability, and what can I do differently? I can go in and I can say, look, one thing I need from you is I need you to be here 3 times a week. I need you to actually visually see what is happening here, because we all know when an owner is completely absent and there's no leader put into play, it's pandemonium. It's just nuts, and it's unfair, because everybody is kind of doing the best they can. Nobody has the authority to make the decision, and everybody's afraid, and you become the bottleneck. So nobody can make a decision or improve anything without you being there, and you're never there. And I think that that's a huge thing, is that if you're not there to have these conversations, maybe have a look at that. Everyone's got this, I want to live on, a beach in Ibiza and not go into the office and do all these things. I have this goal as well, but going into having a personal service business without having that spa lead or that mentor or whoever you have, it's unfair. It's unfair. So yeah, I think that the matter of the perception, the 18 and the 81, is something I would like to use at a staff training one time, because I think we forget how easily offended we are, when really I'm seeing exactly what I'm seeing. And neither one of us, we're both right. We're both experiencing this as it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
That
I
does.
love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I think that's a great way to conclude this. 18 or 81, what do you see? I like that. Yeah. Yeah. So I think I like Tiffany and I, we talked about this, and I told Darine too that I mean, this is a conversation we can just keep going. So we're trying to keep these a little bit short and sweet so that people can listen, have time to listen. But yeah, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for listening to Beauty Babble.